Good morning, noon, evening or night, depending when you're watching this video. My name is Alegende and welcome back to World of Tanks and the Look Back At series, where we now take a look back at the Onslaught game mode. The new form of ranked A7 vs 7 tier 10 game mode with several unique features like pre-battle preparations, points of interest and vehicle role skills. Now we've gotten 2 Onslaught seasons so far, with the season of the Crimson Griffin just finishing off. As this video is uploaded, I believe that tomorrow will be the last day of this season. So in that case it would be a very close by look back at towards the changes between the first and second season, which I'm going to highlight for each bit of content within Onslaught. However, before we take a deeper dive in all of these content bits, what is the general feel of this game mode? So like I said before, it is pretty much a ranked based game mode, and in Ascension it does feel a lot like an improvement to the ranked game mode, because somehow it is more casual than your typical ranked game mode. This is, I think, because of the little amount of rewards that you get from progressing the ranks in comparison to ranked battles, but also because of the ability to create platoons, which focuses more attention on team play instead of individual performance. The fact that you can have a verbal communication with random teams also highlight the intention of this game mode, even though that specific feature hasn't been used very much, I suppose. On the EU servers at least, it might be more common in the general English speaking NA server. But this undertone of being more focused on team play than individual play makes Onslaught a whole lot more enjoyable. Instead of 1 vs 13, you actually play a 7 vs 7 game. Of course, the biggest reason for team play is that you always lose points on a losing battle and win points on a winning battle. But I like that there are multiple other features which encourages team play even more. So that makes this game mode another successful one in every single way, right? Well, let's take a closer look to all of the elements within this game mode and see if there aren't any stinkers amongst them. The rating system. Well, I already highlighted this point out quite a bit in the general overview, but to explain a bit better why this rating system is, in my opinion, far better than the rating system of your traditional ranked game mode, let's read how you actually accumulate these points. So you have 2 different types of points to gain from each battle: prestige points and rating points. The prestige points are the points you accumulate as a team for your rating points. These prestige points are the ones that are highlighted in the post-battle results screen and shows generally how each player performed in their respective team. These points are rewarded for basic combat action, going from your standard dealing damage, losing HP, and even using the skills. Just pretty much every single possible action you can do except for just driving and sitting around. With those prestige points, your rating points are calculated. Of course, if you win, you get rating points, and if you lose rating points. So with the prestige points, the average performance is calculated. If you performed above the average, you get additional rating points, and lose less if you lost. And vice versa, if you earn below the average, you earn less rating points and lose more rating points. So like I said before, more focus on winning as a team, but you still get rewarded for better performance that you did within your team. This is how team-based rankings should look like. They finally figured it out after several years, and luckily they haven't changed it between the seasons. The pre-battle preparation may be the most unique element of the Onslaught mode. the ability to change your vehicle while the countdown goes down in the match. This allows you not only to change equipment shells and or consumables, but also switch around to other tier 10 tanks that might be fitted better with the certain map that you are going to play on. This creates a huge amount of alternatives, since you do not longer have to commit towards a particular flank because you have a specific tank type. I mainly use it to select my tank as the last one in order to balance out the heavy-medium ratio whenever I suspected that the current balance of those tank types is not the best for the map that we are at. However, it does create a disparity between teams with more different tier 10 tanks, especially if most of the tier 10s are the rental ones of one team. Most of the time these players also don't know to always pick a super heavy or a super heavy TD in Ensk. But after a short while the meta was pretty clear on that map particularly. And as you go higher up the ranks, you see the different tank choices for each map getting smaller and smaller. Yet another reason for me to stay in the low ranks. But what do you mean that's a lame excuse for not being skilled enough? This feature also hasn't changed in the newest season, and I honestly can't see how you could make improved changes to this model. Platoons! The other unique feature of this ranked-based game mode is the inclusion of several platoon options. You can still play as a solo player, but also team up with a 2-player platoon, or more importantly, a full-on super platoon with a complete team of 7. This is an amazing feature to include for clan communities, and would feel like a different version of strongholds or some other sorts of clan battles. However, with these platoons there was a difference limit on rating points. In the 2-player platoon this couldn't exceed 350 points, and even in super platoons the difference could be more than 490 points. This was a major heartbreak since some of our clan members in the MBTT were quite into the Onslaught game mode and already achieved a decent amount of points in their many solo games, but other members who played less and or had a break from World of Tanks couldn't be teamed up with. This limited not only the members who had very few points, but also the players who had a lot of points but also wanted to play with the clan together. Luckily, this changed, at least for the super platoons, and now a full team can now include players with any number of rating points. This was the biggest change I wanted to see from the first season, which I would have highlighted as the greatest improvement point in this look back video, but for this one time Wargaming actually beat me to it. Now the only thing I wanted to add is that field commanding a clan super platoon was like on a whole other level. Even though the teams were smaller, this actually meant that the decisions you made were even more important than regular clan battles with bigger teams, since you have more tanks to spare. But also the team setup at the start was a notorious endeavor where I just couldn't get all of the so-called right tanks at the right amount, since you have 40 seconds instead of 2 minutes like in advances where you can pre-plan your battle strategy, being the selection of tanks and also how you strategize during the game. With all of those additional skills and entrance points, it was near impossible to successfully make every right decision at the right time. Within that, individual skills and decision making would play a far bigger role, so highly competitive clans with unicorn players really wouldn't find this an issue and would excel at this game mode, but with a more casual clan with more casual players, it was a task on a whole new level. Luckily in the end, if players were getting more used to all of the elements in this game mode, we got some nice wins out of our Super Platoon games. Matchmaking. So the matchmaking has your typical balance factor like equal team strength by rating points, division and rank. Players with a too big of a division difference cannot be matched in the same battle. This only didn't count for Super Platoons. And now you got Super Platoons always being matched up against other Super Platoons and 2-player platoons, preferably against other 2-player platoons. Now, the only thing I haven't really checked in the balance department is, now that Super Platoons have no points limit, does this amount of rating points that you get or lose change if you are matched against players with far higher or far lower rating points in the enemy team? That would be a point to look out for in the next season. Vehicle role skills. Another new feature to a ranked based game mode. These role skills are active abilities that are divided by vehicle roles and not necessarily vehicle types. This extra differentiation creates more and diverse skills for each type. You got 15 skills, 2 for lights, 4 for mediums, heavies and tank destroyers and 1 for SPG. Also, fun fact in between, in this game mode, SPGs has been vastly out meta because of the general high speed of the battles. And having a SPG would cripple your team too much, so you don't see them that often. So another huge plus to Onslaught. But going back towards the skills, I can go through all of the skills and rate them, but because I'm a meta bitch and actually haven't experienced all of the skill abilities to any great extent, I cannot really give you a in-depth analysis of all the skill. A few things that I noticed is that the sleight of hand skill made the TVP T50-51 absolutely broken. With all your shots hitting, you can get your reload in less than 10 seconds to clip once again. Just think about, in that time the enemy cannot kill you in a 1v1 scenario. And you almost most of the times can with a 2-clip, at least against mediums. And against heavy tanks you can disengage and re-engage later on in order to avoid one shot. Or if the heavy tank just fires one shot, you still have the upper hand because your reload is already up. The bullseye is seemingly also quite a strong skill for a sniping TD, and the SPG skill is like the whole type in itself in this game mode, also garbage, and has, unlike the bullseye with the TDs, near zero synergy with the tank type. But that's a good thing. I mean, no reload reduction, so that way more people would consider playing SPG. So keep that skill as garbage as you can. No, please, no SPGs in this game mode. It's amazing. It actually is very amazing. Tactical skills. Next to the vehicle skills, you can also get 2 tactical skills by capturing interest points. We have seen this before, and it is always an amazing addition to a game with more incentive to take those interest points by brawls and less camping or camping, coming with the disadvantage not taking the arty strike. Now the arty strike has been changed from a multiple hit area to a 1-hit area, but you now have confirmed damage within that zone, making it quite effective for resetting the base or dealing a lot of damage if you catch multiple opponents in that zone. And it isn't dealing so much damage that you instantly lose a lot of HP, especially with the last season modifier. So still balanced in my books. The comm center skill is still quite advantageous, especially if you get there quickly at the start of the battle, but some maps only need it once or not even once at all. Looking at Ensk again. Despite of that, it can be useful in several situations, also a skill that is quite balanced with duration and cooldown. Combat modifiers. So the Crimson Griffin season, the last season up to now, we got a combat modifier, which is supposedly going to be implemented in every Onslaught season from now, with different stats being increased or decreased. I don't really know if that would also be a possibility. This season it was an HP increasement of 25% and the cooldown on consumables pretty much halved from 90 seconds to 45 seconds. Now at first I saw this as a huge problem for the general meta of the game mode, because these modifiers benefits heavy tanks greatly, which already have become more meta in these types of game modes, with their HP being the highest base HP of all types, and they also use the consumables the most. However, I was happily surprised that the HP increase didn't cause a full-on heavy tank meta. Don't get me wrong, most of the times heavy tanks were the way to go, but you weren't vastly disadvantaged if you took a medium tank or tank destroyer. Even a light tank could sometimes still be a viable option on open maps. Also, the general increase of HP didn't make the season filled with insufferable long engagements, because World of Tanks in itself is surprisingly a fast-paced game when you get into the action. Mainly because factors of autoloaders and sniping tanks catching you out and making you instantly a one-shot. But in Onslaught you could make a mistake without getting a major disadvantage, because you still have enough HP to even out if you could trade better next time. Also, most of the times you could also heal a bit. And with enough focus fire, the most buffed mouses with more than 4200 HP couldn't be alive for much longer than a minute or two if multiple teammates engaged it. This all was just an amazing turnaround from my initial expectation, but I will still be wary for future modifiers, because I don't see a lot else being that beneficial to this game mode if it got buffed. For example, DPM buff would reverse the excellent balance of longevity back to the original state and make it even worse. If you make a mistake, half of the time you die instantly. That doesn't really sound like a lot of fun. So Wargaming must be very careful which modifiers to pick in the future, and I wouldn't mind if the modifier of the Crimson Griffin with the HP buffs and the consumable cooldown reduction would become a permanent standard modifier. Changes to the maps. So because of the 7 vs 7 format and increased competitiveness of this mode, some of the maps in Onslaught have been updated to fit this significant difference from their standard battle version. Most of these changes weren't changed again from season to season, only a couple of wagons, train wagons on Ansk and the mosque being slightly tilted more on Sand River. Also, the newly added maps in the last season also remained the same as usual. These are the newly revisioned Airfield and Glacier. Now, I found these changes amazing. It made the map so much more friendly to close range brawl and made the effort for capturing interest points far better without these changes, in which you will get a game of who will go first into the open to be farmed by the waiting team. Who will be it? No, you go first. No, you go first. No, you go first. But honestly, I hoped most, not all, of these tweaks will also be implemented in regular maps. In Himmelsdorf, we might get it in the future with those random events, and if I saw correctly, in the newly revisioned enlarged Ansk, the middle train tracks are opened up for more flanking opportunities in the middle. But please add the extra cover on Sand River as well. Make the downhill slope easier to traverse without falling to your death on El Alouf, and get that rubble in the middle of the factory in Pilsen. These implementations open up so much more different tactics and strategies that maps in World of Tanks desperately needs after so long. But it seems that this exact thing is already starting to be implemented slightly with these random events which we are seeing right now being developed in the recon mode. But please continue that for more maps, either as permanent changes or as these random events. Ranks and rewards. So in Onslaught you have 7 ranks with 5 having 4 divisions. The exceptions without divisions are the champion and legend ranks. I like this amount. It's not too much and the divisions are a great way to create more balanced matchmaking. Like ranked, you will get rewards the more ranks you are progressing, but there are also some extra missions, at least in the Crimson Griffin season, in which you can get some rewards. So the rewards of the ranks themselves are mainly cosmetic, styles, dog tags and badges. However, in the top ranks, champion and legends, you also get bond income for holding that position on the leaderboard for each day. This is all fine, although it would only stimulate me to try hard if I know I could have a chance of getting in those champion or legend ranks. I know legend is in my name, but dedication and no living is also included in the context of Onslaught, and that in fact isn't in my name. Now the weekly missions are absolutely perfect for the more casual player like me to get some nice rewards out of it, being premium days, credits and bonds. On top of that, for completing all the missions a week, you get lucky chips, which will give you additional bonds, premium days, orders, boosters, training menus and a style as well. I was not able to get the missions for each week, so I do miss out on the training menu and the style, but I'm still very content with the extra 1500 bonds I earned this way. Also, quick note in between, I also noticed that it's very easy to earn credits in this game mode in comparison to regular battles. Even without the premium days and shooting more gold than usual, that might also be a very high motive to try out this game mode for more than a couple of battles. So to sum up the other littler points in this game mode, which I haven't spoken about so far, I always like the fog of war feature, so you really have to react when you spot the enemies much later in the game than anticipate their starting moves. This can limit your mindset of just going for some risky places, and it also works greatly in the 7 vs 7 formats, where the team sizes are smaller on, well, generally the same sizes of maps. Rental vehicles were fine, quite a suitable set of rental vehicles, giving at least one good option for each map. Rank in activity is something I haven't come across with, since I have not been able to reach the silver rank, but if I did, I would have played enough to maintain the rating points. It stimulates more activity at the ranks, which I understand since you can get that daily bond income out of it. And disciplinary actions are as usual: don't lose your cool and leave the battle before your tank is destroyed, but being a competitive game mode, that might be tricky a few times since you have still a lot of unfair elements, RNG, to deal with. So in conclusion, from this analysis, I can almost confidently conclude that Onslaught is the game mode that heavily improves on the ranked game mode. Even though with more gimmicks, the general premise is far better, especially since the mode is more team orientated, a 7 vs 7 mentality, instead of individually orientated with a 1 vs 13 mentality. I've played this game mode with a lot more enjoyment than I ever will have in regular ranked. So I hope that it will stay in this Onslaught version from now on forwards and don't revert back towards the old ranked version. For this game mode I don't really have big improvements to introduce, only some minor balances, attention to balance issues that might appear in future iterations, and adding some map changes to the regular game mode, which seems already to be happening. Finally, I want to recall a video I made around 8 months ago about if this ranked based game mode fits World of Tanks. I explain in more detail, so if you want to watch that video, I put it on here. Also with a very obvious example that gave me the conclusion that it doesn't really fit because of the amount of luck and RNG that is present in this game. But does this still hold up after the improved version that is Onslaught? In the end, yes. RNG is still too big of a factor to take this game mode as a ranked game mode or competitive game mode full on serious. But it has improved a lot in other key elements and somewhat in RNG as well. Let me explain. Because of the increase of HP, it takes more shots to destroy the tanks, which leads to more average RNG numbers over a longer period of time. Even though it isn't really that noticeable, it is at least a step in the right direction, which we haven't seen for years. But like I said before, it is more team-based, getting rid of that personal performance at highest priority, like in the Chevron system. You get a way better gameplay experience teaming up not only against your opponents but also against RNG by increasing your odds of winning by correct plays, pushes, focus fire, all throughout communications, although the communications part in the random teams, again on the U at least, are pretty much non-existent, but at least the mental effort is made in order to win and not to play the best as your team. Also, for the most rewards, you can play without try-harding that hard anymore, since the main progression through the ranks mostly consists out of those cosmetics. And only if you are the very best, get in the top 100 or so, only then you can have a bond income, but well, most of us know that those ranks really aren't that achievable. So on that note, I really like where Onslaught has gone with the ranked format, and I hope that it will at least stays as good as it is right now. Do consider a donation if you want me to keep up this content, keep up uploading videos. You can give donations through Streamlabs or Patreon. And with that, that's the end of this video. And I will see you next time. Laters!